Still writing long Python classes just to store data? In this video, you will learn 13 practical data class patterns that make real code shorter, clearer, and safer. Let's replace boilerplate with clean Python. Let's start with the data class patterns you will use most often in everyday Python applications. Each example replaces repetitive class boilerplate with code that clearly expresses the data your program needs. User profiles often move through an API, a database layer, and the user interface, so they should be easy to create and inspect. Let's model that data with a data class instead of writing constructor boilerplate. We define the fields, create a profile, and now run the script to see its useful automatic representation. Let's break down why this works. The data class decorator creates the constructor and the readable object representation for us. That means less code to maintain, while the fields still stay explicit and typed. For the best practice, use data classes when an object primarily stores structured data. They are especially helpful for API models, settings, and small domain objects where handwritten boilerplate adds no value. Every customer needs an independent shopping cart, even before they add their first product. Let's use default validity so each cart receives a fresh list. We add a product to Alex's cart, then run the script and compare it with Jordan's empty cart. Let's break down the result. Default valid calls list for every new cart instead of reusing one list across all carts. That is why adding the keyboard does not appear in Jordan's cart. For the best practice, use default valid whenever a field needs a mutable default such as a list or dictionary. This prevents accidental shared state and makes each instance safe to change independently. An invoice line should accept the price and quantity, but its total should come from those values instead of being entered manually. Let's mark total with init false and calculate it in post init op init. Now we run the script and verify that the total is filled in automatically. Let's break down why total appears even though we never passed it to the constructor. Init false removes it from the input arguments, and post init runs immediately after the data class is created. The total is therefore always based on the actual price and quantity. For the best practice, calculate reliable derived values inside post init instead of accepting them from callers. This is ideal when a value, like an invoice total, must always stay synchronized with its input fields. Now let's make data class instances safer to create and harder to misuse. These options are especially useful for production configuration and values that must remain consistent. Service settings often contain several values that are easy to mix up, especially ports and timeouts. Let's make this configuration keyword only, so every argument must be named. We create a local service configuration and run it to confirm the values are clear in the output. Let's break down the safety benefit. KWOTrue forces callers to write every field name, which makes the configuration readable and prevents positional mix-ups. The printed object also gives us an immediate clear view of the active settings. For the best practice, choose keyword-only data classes for configurations with several similar or optional values. The small amount of extra typing pays off by making production code safer to review and change. Money values travel through checkout, tax, and reporting code, so changing one in place can create serious consistency problems. Let's create an immutable money value and return a new one when tax is added. Now we run the script to confirm that the original subtotal stays unchanged. Let's break down the output. The first line still contains $100, while the second line contains a new value with tax included. Frozen true protects the original instance, and using decimal keeps the monetary calculation precise. For the best practice, make small value objects frozen when changing them, could cause accounting or consistency bugs. This pattern works well for money, dates, identifiers, and other values that should represent one stable fact. Next, we will use data classes for objects that need stable ordering and identity. These patterns show up often in release tools, caches, and application models. Release tools often need to identify the newest deployment without writing custom comparison methods. Let's model a version with major, minor, and patch values, then let the data class generate the ordering for us. Now we run the script and inspect the sorted release list. Let's break down why this works. The generated comparison checks major first, then minor, then patch, exactly like this simple version model needs. That is why every 1x release appears before 2.0.0. As a best practice, use generated ordering when your field order is the real business order. It keeps the model concise and easy to trust. If your comparison rules become more complex, such as pre-release version labels, write those rules explicitly. A search cache needs a stable key that includes the query, locale, and page number. We will make that key frozen so it can safely live in a dictionary. Now we store a result and retrieve it using a separate but equal key instance. Let's break down the lookup. Frozen data classes can be hashed when all of their fields are hashable and equal keys share the same hash. The second search key therefore retrieves the result saved by the first one. Here's the best practice. Make cache keys frozen and keep every field hashable. This prevents a key from changing after it has been inserted into a dictionary. Use simple immutable values such as strings, integers, and tuples for these models. Data class fields can do more than hold values. You can control which values appear in logs and which values affect object equality. Configuration objects are frequently printed in logs, so secrets must not appear in their generated representation. Let's hide an API token and exclude it from equality, while keeping the public connection settings visible. Now we run the example and compare two configs with different tokens. Let's break down the result. The token is absent from the printed config because repr is disabled for that field. The comparison is true because compare is also disabled, so only the public settings are checked. The best practice here is to exclude secrets from repr before they can leak into logs or error reports. This is useful for tokens, passwords, and private connection details. Still, do not treat repr hiding as secret storage. Load secrets from a dedicated secret management system. Good models reject bad input as early as possible. Data classes give us a focused place to normalize data immediately after construction. Form input is messy, and an email address should not spread through the system with extra spaces or inconsistent casing. Let's normalize the value inside post init and reject values that do not contain an @ sign. Now we run one valid customer and handle an invalid submission. Let's break down why the output is clean. Post init runs right after the data class initializer, so it can transform and validate external data at the boundary. The valid email is normalized and the invalid value never becomes usable application state. Here's the best practice. Validate invariants close to object creation before the value reaches business logic or storage. This makes failures easier to locate and prevents invalid state from spreading. For production email validation, choose rules that match your product requirements. Some values describe every instance of a model rather than one particular object. Class var makes that distinction visible to both Python and the data class generator. Plugin systems often need metadata shared by every plugin type alongside data that belongs to one plugin instance. Let's mark the plugin category as a class var, then inspect both the generated fields and the class metadata. Now we run the script to confirm that category stays out of the instance representation. Let's break down the three output lines. The instance shows only name and file extension, and fields reports those same two data class fields. Category is still available on the class, where shared plugin metadata belongs. The best practice is to use class var for constants, registry labels, and metadata shared by all instances. This keeps constructors and equality focused on real instance data. It is especially useful for plugin categories and model-level configuration. Next, let's use data classes in places where performance and memory usage matter. These patterns are especially useful when your application creates many small objects. A telemetry pipeline may keep huge batches of simple events in memory, so compact models can make a real difference. We add slots true to a data class with 3 fixed fields, then create one event. Now we run the script and check both the readable data class output and its internal attribute storage. Let's break down why this works. A normal Python instance usually keeps attributes in dict, but a slotted data class stores only the fields it declared. That is why the handled attribute error confirms there is no instance dictionary. Now let's look at the best practice. Use slots after profiling shows that many fixed shape objects are consuming meaningful memory. It is a strong fit for event records and value objects, but skip it when your design needs dynamic attributes. Data classes are convenient inside Python, but APIs need standard dictionaries, lists, and JSON. Here's a clean way to cross that boundary. When an order service returns data to a client, nested data class objects need to become JSON-friendly structures. We define an order and its item model, create a realistic order, and pass it through asdict. Now we run the script to see the formatted JSON payload that an API could return. Let's break down the result. Asdict walks through the order object and recursively turns each nested order item into a regular dictionary. Once that conversion is complete, JSON jump only sees built-in Python data types. Now let's look at the best practice. Call asdict when data leaves your application, such as an API response or message payload. It keeps your internal code clean, while complex public contracts should still use explicit schemas and validation. Immutable state makes changes easier to trace because old values stay available. Data classes provide a small expressive tool for these controlled updates. User settings often move through queues and event handlers, so preserving the previous state makes changes easier to inspect. We mark the data class as frozen, create the original settings, and use replace to turn on email alerts. Now we run it and compare the old object with the newly created one. Let's break down why the two lines differ. The original instance still has email alerts disabled because frozen data classes cannot be changed in place. Replace creates a separate instance, copies the other fields, and applies the one requested update. Now let's look at the best practice. Use replace for targeted changes to frozen data classes when state needs to be traceable. This makes each transition explicit and avoids hidden mutation across your service. You now have 13 data class patterns you can use in real Python projects. If this made your classes cleaner, like and subscribe for more practical Python examples. Tell me in the comments which Python feature should get the next 13 examples.